All right, this One Time in Real Estate, Season 2, Episode 38, or you could call it 37, Part 2, Luxury Listing Agent, Neil Gelman. It's going to be fun. The first half, amazing. I think second half could even be better. So hold on tight. And we actually, we rebranded that to future pacing, but it's the same idea. You are future pacing the conversation into where you're actually going to go. One other thing that I want to go back to and just want to tell the audience, gaining confidence. Heard you very clearly, as Sarah also articulated, preview. There's something else. In the luxury market, I would recommend read St. Louis Business Journal, read Ladue News, read Town and Style. You may not like the periodicals, but if you're aware of that there was a charity event at the airport, a private airport a couple weeks ago, that this business got acquired. I think the more reference points, and again, this has nothing to do with where you're at in life, it just allows you to communicate and relate more closely. Plus, as you're interviewing that person, they're interviewing you. And they're interviewing you not only for your skills, but also what do you know? And so I would highly, highly recommend getting well read. Getting well read in the business environment of what's happening. In anticipation of any meeting, you should have already done your research in LinkedIn and Facebook to find out what do they do. Sarah's a big one. About email. What do you look at? Because I know you look at clues, and that will give you a lot of clues. Tell the audience.
Yeah, so a lot of the time when people register, they will use their business email, and that can be a very missed opportunity if you don't take note. If it says at Woostel, like we talked about in a previous episode, then that's Washington University, St. Louis, so they're potentially in the medical field or something, or they go to WashU potentially, but you can dig in on that. Same with SLU, obviously. There's so many here. Bayer, you can find some common ground with them that you can leverage later on. Oh, I see your email address. Do you work there? And then they just open up and usually let them talk, find out more about them. That's a great way to build rapport. Now
be very careful though from a confidentiality standpoint. Don't connect dots. Oh, you work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Do you know so-and-so? Because it could have been a bad experience. They could have been their boss and they could have fired them. Numerous things. Use it as a reference. I love that. So I noticed that your email is WashU. Out of curiosity, where are you at in WashU? Mm-hmm. Are you at the hospital? Are you in the university?
Right.
What division are you at Bayer? Mm-hmm. What division are you at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Edward Jones, so on and so forth. But the more reference points you have, just hold them in your back pocket. If they're a private held company, that would be the email. Google search that private held who you may know nothing about, and maybe they just sold. Maybe they had an investment infusion. But you don't need to talk about it. You don't need to brag about it. But it's a reference point.
We were just doing call review last Friday, and we did a Zillow call, and one of our great agents answered this call, and the gentleman that was calling in was very direct. If you know the disc, he was a high D, like very direct. And I just had this feeling, I'm like, who is this guy? And I'm curious, naturally curious. I'm sure you are as well, because that's the characteristic of a good agent. And so I did a quick FAFO session. If you don't know FAFO, look back on previous episodes. And it just so happened that a St. Louis Business Journal article was linked. It's really annoying when you don't belong. You can't see it. But then there was other articles, and this gentleman's family was extremely reputable, not only in St. Louis, but in Missouri, and had, it was so incredibly insightful that I was able to call our agent, because he did set an appointment. And I was like, did you look up who this person is? So anyway, and I was able to pass off that information to him. But, don't lose sight of how important it is to do your research on these people.
Absolutely. And I always try to, when I am meeting with somebody and I know who they are, mm-hmm. I will always find some common ground. They always say if I remember early on when I first got into real estate, if you can't find anything about a person, you don't know anything about them, as you're walking around the house, you might get clues. For example, Mark and I were cyclists. If you see somebody has a bike, you can say, we used to have a MS 150 team. So you can have common ground to
Totally.
then all of a sudden connect. The other thing I was thinking about with the whole chameleon thing is that a big difference between a luxury listing presentation and a non-luxury listing presentation is you can't go in there with a luxury seller and just do a canned presentation. I know we put together these beautiful listing books. I don't even open mine at all, except for maybe one page. I leave it as a giveaway.
Yep.
But I sit there when I tour the house very, quickly, take pictures for future conversation, but then I sit down, I ask a ton of questions, and then I make it more like a casual conversation, meaning that if, and I tell our newer agents, and I would tell anybody who's listening as well, the best quality of a good agent making a listing presentation is being able to get off track and then get right back on track. You can't just go through and expect to go through your listing presentation. You're going to be interrupted. There's going to be certain things that the buyer or the seller is going to ask you. You have to be able to not say, let me get to that, because that'll irritate them. You answer the question, and that may lead to a whole nother, off book conversation, but that's what's important to them. And then you get back on track later.
Right.
There's two other things that I'd like to go over. There's an old saying, never judge a book by its cover. You have to be very, very cautious when you're at an open house, when you meet somebody on the street, because there's a lot of wealthy people that look like they don't have any money because they're casual today. That's how they are going to be today. So I think that you have to be very cautious in that regard. The other thing is you can see how we're dressed. Traditionally, Neil wears a tie, but for the podcast today, no need to wear it. We met with clients today, but you can see we are dressed like, if our client's not dressed that way, it's okay. We're still dressed this way because we want them to know the seriousness that we consider the transaction. You wear a tie all the time.
I wear a tie to every appointment.
And what's your thoughts?
I think it's very professional, and I think most people don't do it. And one of the things that you and I have always talked about, we were taught early on by a mentor of both of ours, that you never know who you're going to meet. And when you meet your friends and even family, you should dress the same. You want to treat them the same way you treat your customer. And I can't tell you how many times Mark and I have showed up to appointments in the summer on a hot Saturday. We're sweating to death. We have a tie on. They say, and they're good friends of ours. They say, you didn't have to do that. We don't know. This is the way we dress. And they look at you differently. They look at you professionally, and they say, these guys take this business seriously.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's incredibly important. The last thing, if you have a goal, if you're listening and you have a goal, a dream of being in the luxury market, you have to act like you're in the luxury market with the non-luxury clients. You have to dress the right way. You have to be prepared. By the way, those clients, to be clear, deserve the same treatment as luxury. But if you want to get to where, you better start acting like you're a luxury agent. And once you start doing that, your business will change. The results will change. Your income will change because you, quite frankly, don't have to sell as many $300,000 homes when you sell $1 million home. Anything else before we wrap this amazing interview up?
No, I just think, again, I just wrap it up by saying knowledge gives you credibility, whether it's knowledge of your craft, the area, or as Mark suggested, knowing who you're meeting with. It all boils down to do your research before you meet somebody so that you're on your top of your A game, because you only have one opportunity and one first impression.